Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. As mentioned, our guest on the program, Sergeant Danger Geist, enlisted in the Army at 17, was sent to the volatile region of Afghanistan. He documented his adventures in a series of emails to family and friends, which he has since turned into his first book, I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. And Sergeant Danger Geist, our guest on the program. Sergeant, welcome to the show.
Rick, I appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
It's an excellent book, a lot to talk about during the course of the program. And if somebody's saying, is that really his name? Actually, now that is your name, legal name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It wasn't always. My parents didn't give it to me. But a little bit as the book explains, it eventually got attached to me just kind of as a nickname. And down the road, I eventually got it legally added. And so now I am officially Danger.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit about how that came about as we get into the book. And let's go back and sort of set this up in the beginning. As you were young, growing up in the streets of East St. Louis, and really had, well, in fact, you say in the book your life was pretty much shambles. You were even contemplating suicide at one time.
I did have some suicidal ideation. I actually didn't grow up in East St. Louis. I grew up in Zion, Illinois, which is way north suburbs of Chicago. But I was in East St. Louis for school when I was going there for college. And during that time, I really hit what I would call my rock bottom, where I was just very depressed, getting out of a relationship that didn't end well, and just everything seemed to be falling apart all at the same time.
Well, you talk in the book, and the book is I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. It's available at burningbridge.com. Information on the book available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You really reached out to God. You were speaking to God, but for a while you didn't realize he was even responding to you.
Yeah, the incident you're talking about where you said I was contemplating suicide, where that comes from, and I talk about this early in the book, is I was in a church parking lot. I was contemplating just driving my car and hitting a pole, not necessarily to kill myself, but just to see what would happen, and if death was part of it, then so be it. Because I really felt like God was abandoning me during that time in my life, and I couldn't see it then. In hindsight, I see all the different ways God was there for me, so I really was never abandoned, but it wasn't something that became clear until much later in my life.
You say your life changed on February 18th, 2006. Explain that experience.
Yeah, that's a really special day to me. I was talking to a girl that I had actually gone to kindergarten with. We weren't friends back then. We had gone to the same school, and then, as I mentioned, I moved away to Zion, Illinois for most of my life. But on February 18th, we had gotten back in contact about a week before this, and while I was texting her back and forth, I just felt an overwhelming certainty that I was going to marry this girl, that not just something for myself, but that God was telling me, this is the person that you're going to marry. So it was just a very strange experience, because I just felt my heart open. You know, the floodgates were just pouring in with love. And growing up, I was religious, and this girl was not. And so it wasn't completely foreign to me, at least not as foreign as it would be to her. And so I was scared about how she might take, me saying, hey, right, God just told me we're going to get married. But I just went forward and I said, hey, God told me that we're going to get married. And the strange thing is she believed it too. She felt it too.
You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Our website is thisweekinamerica.us. Our guest on the program is Sergeant Danger Geist. His book, his first book, an excellent one. It's called I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. It's available at burningbridge.com, Amazon as well. Burning Bridge, you'll get a chance to read a little bit of the book and get a feel for what Danger is talking about. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And it really gives you sort of a background on what soldiers go through during a deployment over in Iraq or over in Afghanistan where this takes place. Let's go back a little bit and talk about this desire you had. You finish your junior year in high school, and you go to enlist in the National Guard. And actually, your parents had to even sign for you to get into the National Guard because legally you weren't an adult at that time. What was it? What was your motivation to sign up at that time to get into the National Guard?
Right, yeah, it's kind of a strange thing for a 17-year-old kid who's not even out of high school to want to do this, especially when I had aspirations of going to college, pretty much all throughout my school career. At the time, I thought the reasons were, all the very noble reasons, like I wanted to serve my country or it was my time to do my duty, things like that. And again, in hindsight, I realize now that, those may have been minimal factors in the equation, but the real factor was I wanted something to be proud of. I wanted to prove to everyone that I could do this thing. If I had told people, hey, I'm going to join the Army, they would have laughed in my face. I know this is true because after I did join the Army and told people this, they still laughed in my face. So it was just something I had to prove to myself and prove to others, which are not the right reasons that I enlisted, but it did end up working out for me anyway.
Well, and it's interesting because after you make that decision, just as you're ready to leave, some great scenes in the book where you're leaving your girlfriend behind, and it's difficult for you emotionally. You're leaving your parents behind, and it's difficult. How many times did you go through, and how long did you go through, self-doubts that maybe I shouldn't be doing this?
It really, the doubts hit hard right when I was leaving, like what you're referring to, where I had to leave my girlfriend, where I had to leave my parents.
Yes.
My dad told me when I had left that night to go on the deployment, he was sure that that was going to be the last time he saw me, and the next time he'd see me would be in a casket. And so it was very hard on him too, especially because he's one of the people that had to sign the papers, and him and my mom were deciding whether or not the U.S. government, my body. Family members and friends were telling them, you do this, your son is going to die, and that blood is on your hands. And so it was a very difficult thing for them. And going away to Afghanistan, these were things that I had been thinking about and things that I knew. And so it became a very difficult thing for me because just the doubts began to overwhelm me for the first couple months.
You're a chaplain's assistant in Afghanistan, and you described that as sort of, and you said the chaplains didn't like this, but you were sort of a bodyguard for the chaplain among your many jobs.
Right, yeah. The government or the Army really doesn't like when people refer to chaplain assistants as bodyguards. I really feel the description is that's what it is. We're out there to protect the chaplain, and if that means losing our life so that the chaplain can survive, I don't know what else you call a bodyguard, but that was the job. There's other components to the job. A very important component is providing religious support to all the other soldiers, and so whatever that looks like, no matter what, religion they are, we have to try and serve them and help them to practice their religion in a free way, I guess you can say. So those are really the two biggest components of that job.
And it's interesting because, and we mentioned before that your strong religious faith, the strong Christianity, you're over there dealing with Muslim natives, and you say in the book you were even able to learn some principles from them. It was a very valuable experience in many cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Believe me when I say I didn't go to Afghanistan to get some religious experience. But that's really what happened, because while I was in Afghanistan, I really befriended the interpreters that we were using that lived on our base. And, all of them obviously are Muslim in a Islam country. That's just how it is. And I was able to really learn a lot about not just Islam, but Christianity, and not in the sense like they explained my religion to me, but they said things to me that really made me contemplate, what faith meant to me, and what Jesus meant to me, and so I'm permanently indebted to them because of the great relationship we had.
What's interesting as you talk about the interpreters, and our guest on the program is Sergeant Danger Geist. His book is I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. The book is available at burningbridge.com, also, of course, available at Amazon, and information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You refer to them, and this was an affectionate term, terps, that was sort of shortening for interpreters. What type of role did they play in your relationship there, the time that you spent there? And what has happened to the interpreters? I understand that sort of a lost group over there as we're pulling out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I really created a great relationship with the interpreters. My best friends in Afghanistan were not other soldiers, which is typically the case. When soldiers go to Afghanistan, they really befriend each other and become brothers with one another. And not that didn't happen with me, but I felt such a much closer connection with the interpreters there, and they became my best friends while I was over there. And I still talk to some of them to this day when they are able to get on Facebook or whatever. I mean, they have limited internet access, but when I can talk to them, I do. Unfortunately for them, the government actually sent out a letter to them recently, I think just 3 months ago, saying that, hey, interpreters, thanks for your service. The U.S. is planning on pulling out next year. When that happens, the Taliban might go after you. So we really suggest you get out of Afghanistan. And by the way, you can't come to the U.S.
Wow. So sort of unintended consequences. You've got a group of people over there that really, what are they going to do? What are your friends going to do?
Yeah, well, they're scrambling. Many of them are afraid. Some of them have already fled the country because they don't even want to get anywhere near that pullout date. I know one interpreter got as far as Canada. One interpreter did get into the U.S. He was able to go through the system and make it in, but the rest are still stuck. I know one made it as far as Belgium, someone else is in Pakistan, and a whole lot of them are still stuck in Afghanistan. And it's a very frustrating experience for them because they agreed to be interpreters for the U.S., partially because they really believe in the mission. I mean, that's the strongest aspect. But the U.S. also kind of dangled this carrot in front of their face saying, hey, if you work for us for 1 year, 1 calendar year, we will give you refuge to the U.S. You'll get a visa approved and you can come live with us.
Well, how are we leaving Afghanistan?
That's a good question. You might want to ask the commander-in-chief about that one. I'm not too familiar with the exit strategy that's going on, but from my understanding, it is a pretty drastic and quick pullout to where we set the state, and, no matter what's going on after the state, the soldiers got to start coming home then.
What will happen there? You talk about the government is sort of saying Taliban may rise up again, and you may have to fear for your safety. In fact, you should plan on fearing for your safety. What will the country be like when we finally remove all of the troops out of Afghanistan?
That is the big question. I mean, they've set up a democracy now, and not because we forced them to, but because they wanted this to happen. A lot of people get Iraq and Afghanistan confused because Iraq we invaded, for our own purposes.
Right.
Afghanistan, they literally asked us to come in and help them set up this government and become stronger so that they could take on the Taliban. So when we pull out, it really is going to be the big test. Can the Afghan army and the Afghan police take on the Taliban that are certainly going to come back and try and take over the government again? It's hard to say what that's going to look like. I do wish we had a little bit more time to keep training the Afghan army, but this is the situation we're in, and it'll be very revealing once we pull out what the future of Afghanistan looks like.
The book is I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. It's available at burningbridge.com, amazon.com, information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Yes, part of what you were doing over there was training the Afghanistan police as well as the National Army. Are they prepared at this point to take over when we leave?
It's, again, that's a really tough thing to say for sure. They're definitely more prepared. There's no doubt about that. I mean, even just in the short time that I was there, and we're talking about a 1-year time frame between 2008 and 2009. When I was there, I did see progress. There at the beginning there were a lot of stories about the Taliban striking and the Afghan army just not knowing what to do and getting killed as a result. And by the end, because I was actually there for the elections in 2009. The Afghan army really pulled through on that, and they were able to stand up to the Taliban attacks and everything leading up to that, all the attacks leading up to that, they responded appropriately. And I mean, it's not perfect. I wouldn't say they're on par with the U.S. military by any means, but they're definitely more efficient and much better protectors now.
When you read the book, it gives you, I really believe, a better understanding of what, and I said typical before, typical deployment. I'm not sure there is a typical deployment. We can talk about that in a second. But it gives you an understanding of the people, of the country, of the situation, of the mission over there. You have an excellent way of breaking things down, very simple. In fact, we talked about that before. You really, about as well as anybody, gave the definition and the difference between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Most people don't understand they're interchangeable terms. What is the difference?
Yeah, it's really a matter of semantics by and large. It has to do with the location of where the specific terrorist group is coming out of. It's very similar to in the U.S. We have all these different gangs, and if you were in another country, you would just group up all these, the Crips, the Bloods, the Latin Kings, whatever, and you just call them gangs, and that's kind of what we've done. And so we kind of group Al-Qaeda and the Taliban together when they're really two different gangs. If you were to tell a Crip that him and a Blood or him and a Latin King were the same thing, they would definitely tell you otherwise. And so it's kind of a similar situation where it's just two gangs that are really focused on promoting terror.
We've got a couple minutes left in the program. Our guest on the show is Sergeant Danger Geist. His book is called I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. The book is available at burningbridge.com, also available at amazon.com. Information, and you can link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You say that you thought when you got back you survived the war, but realized part of you died in Afghanistan. Talk about that. Yeah,
it's an interesting phenomenon, and it's extremely difficult to explain. And I try doing it as best I can in my book. But when I got back from Afghanistan, I really felt a void. Something was missing. I was angry all the time, and I couldn't put my finger on why that was. So a piece of me really died because I got back from Afghanistan, and all of a sudden I felt so weak. I felt like I was nothing like I was in Afghanistan. And it was a very defeating experience. Of course, there's PTSD symptoms, thrown in there, and I talk about that in the book. But it was just, it was very similar to what we talked about earlier, the rock bottom I felt
right.
Back in 2006. And not that I was thinking about committing suicide at this point, but just many of the same feelings were resurfacing when in reality I figure, I just got back from going to war. I should be at the top of my game right now. I should be, living life up, and instead I was just sad all the time.
Read a statistic just a couple of weeks ago that out of about 2 million that were deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, as many as 25% will have some type of mental issue. Various scales from, minor to really requiring some deep counseling. Do you think that that's an accurate figure?
No, I don't. I think it's much higher than that.
Wow.
I think that statistic probably comes from soldiers not wanting to admit that something's wrong. I was willing to admit after I got back that things weren't right, something, was wrong. I didn't want to call it PTSD. I still don't really feel comfortable calling it that for various reasons, and that's a whole other thing. But I think, any soldier who comes back from Afghanistan and their mind hasn't been transformed, or they're not having difficulty reintegrating into life, something's not right there, because you can't go somewhere for a year and go through these kinds of things, these kinds of trauma for many soldiers, and come back and just pick up where you left off. It just doesn't happen that way.
We say support the troops, and that makes for a great slogan, makes for a great bumper sticker. And I'm wondering, as the soldiers are coming back, are we really supporting the troops? Are we doing enough for you and the others coming back to get back into society?
It's difficult to say. I definitely lean towards saying no, there's not enough being done. Everyone loves a soldier until they come back home and they stop fighting. And that's just kind of a problem we have in America. I know when I got back from Afghanistan, I was having back issues, and it took me, I think, over 3 years to finally get the VA to listen to me about my back issues and finally admit fault that they had messed up my back, despite me having multiple doctors while I was in Afghanistan say, hey, the body armor, killed his back. When he gets back home, he's going to need medicine or whatever it might be. They weren't willing to admit that they did anything wrong to me, and they weren't even willing to admit that anything was wrong with me, despite these doctors' notes. And so it's a very bureaucratic, red tape kind of situation that many soldiers find themselves in. They come back and they want to enroll in the VA for health care, and they just get caught in line, and they're there for years on end, literally years, and there's no one to help them out.
We'll have Danger back in the program. So much more to talk about. It is an excellent book. I Am Danger, I Am Prisoner. The book is available, and you can read a couple of chapters at burningbridge.com. You go to amazon.com to order it at burningbridge.com as well. And if you don't remember all that information, just go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on and get all that information. Sergeant Danger Geist, our guest on the program. Danger, thank you for joining us. Excellent job on the book, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you very much, Rick.
You're listening to This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.
You've been listening to This Week in America with Ric Bratton. And join us next time for another broadcast of This Week in America.